Happy Pine Day to everybody who celebrates. This is your boy, Martin Irving, along with your other boy, Drake White.
Happy Pine Day, folks.
And it's a good
A
Pine
little
Day
frosty today.
indeed. It's a little, we're a little closer to hockey season. It's September now. And why not do some way too early rankings of who we think will be the top guns and the not top guns, whatever the opposite of Top Gun is.
Oh no, is it really too early to be doing this? I mean, it's September now. Hockey starts in October. I mean, if we were thinking like too early, it would have been right after the Stanley Cup. We were saying, yeah, Vegas is going to win another Stanley Cup because they just won. That's too early. Right now is not too early,
I
in
think
my
some people were.
opinion. What you say?
I think some people were. Some people are already calling for another Vegas Cup like right after they won.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Vegas won another one, but I mean, Vegas just has a horseshoe up their ass, so I mean, before we hop into that, we actually have a couple news articles we need to discuss first. There's a lot going on in the hockey world lately. First off, Austin Matthews, $13 million contract for the next 4 years in Toronto. How are we feeling about that? I mean, I think that was the deal I was expecting him to do anyway. I didn't think he was going to go long term with them. I was expecting to be the most paid guy in the league. It's still not that much in terms of other sports, right? But I'm not surprised we got. And I mean, Treliving's little jab at Nylander afterwards. I'm not sure if you saw that, but I don't know, a little bit of fire going on in the Leafs now.
You know, this is a make or break contract for the Toronto boys. You need to win now. You got your one of the top guys in the league locked up for 4 years. You need to do something with those 4 years. One win in the second round isn't enough. You need to do something with that. And I'm going to discuss that a little later. The playoff. Around this time last year, you could have already predicted who was going to be in the Atlantic in the playoffs. This year, it's a little more wide open, and we're going to talk about that
It's
later.
it's a little bit hairy. There is another, and this is actually really, really wholesome. I was reading this one today. It's about Connor Bedard and Matvey Michkov, right? And the story goes, it was a Russian interview with Michkov, and it was about when his dad had passed away, right? And he said, when I had the tragic news that my dad, Connor texted me and said, everything will be fine. I'm with you. I've seen how you play. I know you'll make him proud. Stay strong. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. And apparently, Bedard also said, I don't know if it's likely, or he offered to actually let him stay at his place in Vancouver if he's ever in the area. Apparently, Michkov actually offered the same thing if Bedard ever finds himself in Russia. Like, I don't know his parents, but they did one hell of a job raising this kid. He's highly skilled. He's humble, absolute class act. I mean, that's just a captain right there already, and he's only 18 years old. I mean, I'm absolutely astounded by that. Right? The pure maturity of that. And the fact that, everybody's like, oh, well, it's like Crosby and Ovechkin, right? But it's not, because those two were rivals that grew to respect each other. This actually looks like these two are becoming friends before they even face each other in the league. Like, so wholesome. I love it. That's what hockey's about.
It's more than just the game. It's
It really
there's
is.
a lot to it off the ice too, and a lot of people forget that. And it's great to see a guy with his I don't know how to put it. A guy that has such a following already because he's
A guy of his status.
status is a good way to put it.
Yeah, someone
And
of his
it's great to
status
see
being so
him.
humble.
Yeah, it's great to see him be humble. You kind of got glimpses of that at the World Juniors. Every time they interviewed him, he was like, "I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about my team." Like it's great to see, and like it's that's a guy you build a franchise around. You build a guy like that is you know just a
Absolute
good
class
dude.
act. Yeah. Yeah, anyways, news out of the way. We have a couple things that we need to talk about, and we don't have a lot of time to actually do it. So what do you say we hop into our predictions here?
Yeah, it's a pretty loaded topic, so we're just gonna try and swing through these, give a little bit of reasoning, not a whole lot, but we got 32 teams to talk about, so why don't
Yeah, let's
we
get the show on the road.
start it off here?
All right,
Uh,
where are you thinking first? What division you want to go with?
I'm thinking the Metro.
You want to go Metro first? Interesting.
Might as
Okay.
well go Metro.
All right, you want me to give my predictions first? You want to give your predictions first? Where are we going here?
I think you started off.
All right. So Metro wise, I honestly the Metro is probably one of my favorite divisions to watch this year. I mean, it looks like it could be practically anybody's game outside of Philadelphia, right? Every single team in there, they're a competitive team. Some maybe they're a little bit rougher than others, right? But there's a lot of skill in the Metro this year. Personally, I think Carolina is going to be the league leader, actually, right? I just can't see, they added Orlov. They added Bunting, right? Like they added a bit of size to their roster. They retained all their main guys there, right? I just can't see how Carolina is not the top team in the league this year. I mean, they're a team that struggled in the playoffs, but I think they're really trying to find a way to break that this time because they can go far and they get swept in the finals or the conference finals. Second, I have New Jersey, right? New Jersey was a massive breakout team last year. They beat the Rangers in the first round, got absolutely demolished by Carolina. But with a little bit more, experience, Toothless Jack might just be a little bit of a nightmare for the league this year. I don't know. I think New Jersey's going to be there at two. I think the Rangers are still going to be in the fold at three. I just can't see how the Rangers aren't in a playoff position. And it really opens up after that in the wild card. You got Pittsburgh. Personally, I think Pittsburgh's going to be the first wild card. I think adding Carlson and adding Graves and all their bottom six, like Kyle Dubas has done a perfect job with that team. Um, they've added everything that they needed last year, and I really think it's going to show this year. I could even see them being higher. I think a lot of people are starting to rate them off, think that they might be a little bit overrated though. After that, I think Columbus. I think they might be the most improved team in the league. So I have to put Columbus at five in the division, and then just follow it up with Washington, the Islanders, and Philadelphia.
Interesting. Our rankings aren't too far off from each other. We did discuss this. If anybody's thinking, we discussed this. We did not discuss this prior.
You saw the pictures of mine, but you'd already had yours put together by then. So,
Yeah. So
right, well, what's yours?
for the first place, I had a bit of a switch up. I think New Jersey is gonna go on an absolute tear this
Interesting.
year. I don't know. I just have a feeling, they're a very young team. Uh, they don't have a lot to prove. I think they surprised everybody last year, and
Yeah, I
I
can get
think
behind that.
I think the only thing they got to prove this year is make sure that it wasn't a fluke, which it shouldn't be. They have an amazing team.
Yeah, they got to fix
But
their defense though,
yeah,
because they lost Graves, and I think they lost somebody else. So I mean, Luke Hughes is going to be expected to pick up a big role on that team. So I mean, maybe they go out and get another guy at the deadline, but I think their most suspect area is definitely going to be their defense and maybe their goaltending, depending on how Vitek Vanacek and Akira Schmid can do.
yeah, they're certainly going to be interesting. I can't see why they wouldn't pick up a good defenseman at the deadline, even before that. Maybe we'll see. Carolina in second, like they're a great team that's had some inconsistencies in the past. I don't, like I think they're going to be great this year. I think this year is cup or bust for them. Uh, I only rank them as second because I like to see a team like that just got out of the rebuild stage, like New Jersey, continue to stay up. Um, Third place, I had the Rangers. They got such a good roster, but there's some holes to fill there still with Kane and Tarasenko gone now. I think they'll do that, but it's a matter of how much they'll gel because I don't think Tarasenko or Kane gelled with the Rangers.
Stanko
For
kind of
my
did. Kane didn't.
Yeah, Tarasenko was okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
Kane
like
Kane just did not mesh with Panarin the way that you expected.
Yeah,
But it doesn't
that's
matter. He's not signed anywhere anyway, so it's fine.
yeah. Flashback to episode one.
Yeah.
In my wild card spot, I have Pittsburgh. I think they will make the playoffs this year after missing them last year. I I'm not convinced they're going to be a top team again this year because like they seem to be pretty, like with the age of the team, injuries are bound to happen.
Crosby had
And
93 points last year at
yeah,
36. They're not
oh yeah,
slow. Those guys aren't slowing down.
I'm not so much worried about Crosby. I'm not sure.
You're worried about Carlson.
Yeah, Carlson's a bit
Yeah, but
bit
now
suspect.
they got Letang. Like they got
Oh yeah,
Carlson and they got Letang right behind him. So I mean,
I'm just not convinced they're going to be healthy the whole year. I don't know. I have a
eh,
gut feeling.
I
Um,
feel it's fair. I mean, Jerry's not going to be healthy all year. We know that.
yeah, and watch, they're going to win another cup after we say this.
I mean, I'd be down.
Afterwards, my predictions. I have the Islanders. They're not going to make the playoffs just because they're. I don't know what the Islanders are anymore.
They didn't do anything all off season. Lou
No.
Lamoriello forgot to set his alarm again in free agency. I
Yeah,
don't even think they signed. I think they like re-signed a free agent, and that was it. Oh, and
yeah, they didn't do
Varlamov. They
anything.
re-signed Varlamov
Yeah.
for some reason.
Um, I think the Caps are going to be after them. I don't know how much they have to sell right now, but I just don't see them being anywhere where they used to be. That's the price of a cup, though. And then I have the Jackets and then Philadelphia.
Any reason why you get the Jackets so low? I mean, they added like an entire decor.
Just because they're still young, this is like the first. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
Lining's 24, Gaudreau's like 30.
Yeah,
Boone
but
Jenner is like 20, 29. I mean, they're not necessarily a young team because they went
they're
out and they got a bunch of free agents.
they're not. But I don't know. I just don't see them doing anything this year.
Yeah, like let's think about it this year, okay? So you got Columbus. Last year, they were rolling six guys that whose names looked like they were in an EA generator because Werenski was gone. This year they got Werenski, Severson, Provorov. I feel like I'm forgetting some, but Andrew Peak, Goodbranson, Jiricek. Oh, I'm definitely forgetting somebody. But you get the gist of it. Who am I
Oh yeah.
forgetting? That's going to bother me for the rest of this time until I remember it. But like they built up a proper top four this year. So that's why I had them a bit higher than you.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and I mean their offense is just absolutely loaded from top to bottom with just pure offense.
Oh yeah.
Like Adam Fantilli's going to be like a man out there. He'll be like McTavish.
I think they're going to make the playoffs next year.
I could see that too. It's either going to be they're either going to be outside, like just outside looking in, or absolutely horrendous. But I think next year, yeah, they're definitely a wild card team next year.
I think so.
Good that we both agree Philly's right at the bottom though.
Yeah,
They know
that's a
that they're
whole
at the bottom.
that's a whole video on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, the many woes of Philadelphia. Book it.
I'd like to talk about a division that I think probably is the most interesting one this year. It's a division that's been super tight in the past few years. Not a lot of room to work with. This year, it seems to be a bit more open. I'm talking, of course, about the Atlantic.
Ooh, yeah, the Atlantic's definitely interesting because all the juggernauts of the last decade are finally slowing down. You had maybe they were a fluke, maybe they weren't in Florida. I mean, they made it into the playoffs because Buddy Robinson scored a singular goal against Pittsburgh, right? And sent the Penguins packing, right? So I mean, Florida wasn't a strong regular season team anyway. They were just built for playoffs. But personally, I think, yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I think everybody has them there. Toronto's at the top of the division, right? The team got better, like tenfold. You bring in Bertuzzi, you bring in Reeves, who might not be the greatest player, but the team might start playing about a foot taller now. You bring in Domi, who's going to drop the gloves. You bring in Benoit, who's going to drop the gloves. You retain Samsonov. You still bring in your depth guys. They do have a couple issues where they need to free up a little bit of cap space. right? I think they're still about 2 million over. So I mean that really questions me, makes me question who's gone. Personally, I think it might be Connor Timmins or Kelly Youngcroak. I could see Kelly Youngcroak being gone too. And I'm butchering his name really bad for some reason today.
You're close enough.
Yeah, I don't know, but no, like Yarncroak, I can totally see him being a guy moved because he was a Dubas guy to begin with. So maybe he makes his way to Pittsburgh somehow. Treliving's already worked with him. It just did not work out in Calgary. So I mean, that could be interesting to see. Second up, I think Tampa Bay is going to hold on. I don't
Yeah.
think Tampa Bay's gone. I mean, they lost a fair bit, but Tampa's always a team that can just kind of pull some random guy out of nowhere and make him look like an absolute stud. And I think they're going to do it again. Maybe we see a Tanner Janot bounce back. That's something they would definitely need. Hedman might bounce back for them. Their defense is still, it's kind of sus, but I mean, what are you going to do? Maybe Sergachev takes that next step for them. After that, that's where it opens up. Number three is where it opens up because there are realistically like five teams, or yeah, five teams that could be battling for third place here. Personally, I have Buffalo. A lot of people seem to have Buffalo a bit lower, and I can see why. They're still not a very experienced team. Their stars are still really young. It's really just a U25 team, and then you know, your leadership group of, Johnson and Okposo and Skinner and all those guys. You got an unproven goalie in Levi. But I think Levi is going to pick up where he left off last year. They've shored up their defense, which was one glaring issue they had last year, and I think that they might make another move eventually on that too. And I mean, their forward group it's built out of guys that can put the puck in a net. There's a lot of potential with their youth. After that, I actually have Ottawa on my wild card spot. I think Ottawa is kind of getting written off a little bit. They really were not that great last year. A lot worse than I expected them to be. But I really think that Ottawa is ready to finally take that next step, especially after bringing in a guy like Tarasenko. I really think he's going to vibe with that group. Stick him with like Giroux and Stutzel and see how it works. You keep Kachuk, Norris, and maybe Batherson together, right? So I mean that's a strong top six right there. Their bottom six has gotten better. There's some heavy bodies in there. Sanderson's ready to take the next step defensively. Shabbat's ready for a bounce back. You still got Brandstrom kicking around. They finally have their goalie tandem. Corpusalo, he might not be proven, but he could really prove some people wrong. And then I mean Forsberg is right there too. After that, I think it's Florida. I don't think Florida makes it this year. They had to sell a little bit. They're going to have to sell a little bit more. Ekblad's out for most of the season again. Montour is still injured right now, but I really think, like last year, I really think last year was a fluke for them. I don't necessarily think that they're going to be back again. Boston, I'm not fully prepared to write off because, I mean, I wrote them off last year,
Yeah,
and
they never seem to
somehow
go
they
away,
let
do they?
go off. We're about to see like 70-point Pavel Zacha on like the first line
Yeah.
between playing with Marchand and Pasternak. And I mean, their defense is still as good as it was last year, and their goaltending is the exact same tandem. So I mean, you can't go wrong with them. Their only issue is their forward depth. It's atrocious. Um, I think Detroit. Some people might be overrating Detroit a little bit. I think. I don't think Detroit's ready for that next step, but it really seems like they're trying to push for playoffs too early. They're signing a bunch of guys at a free agency. They're creating a logjam. I just don't think that team. I think it's going to fail ultimately, and maybe that's something we talk about on a future episode about the Iser plan. But I just think it's going to fail this year. And then last off, I have Montreal. Everybody has Montreal at the bottom of the division. That's just a given.
Yeah, I once again we're kind of similar, but I have some different things here.
All right, well, let me know. I want to hear this.
So first, the only I think obvious team is, Toronto, not being biased at all here, but they've built. I think they took some influence in playing against the Florida Panthers this year in the playoffs. They signed a bunch of guys that are going to make your life difficult. They signed Bertuzzi, they signed Domi, they signed Reeves, they signed
Benoit.
yeah, that's the one I was missing
Guy
there.
just likes to hit people.
And that's what they need. And you know what? Like, I like the approach they're going. You always hear that people think they're too soft, and then Bunting hit somebody in game one, and then all of a sudden they're the dirtiest team in the world. But
That's the narrative every year, though. Every time Toronto is soft until they hit somebody, then they're suddenly dirty. Make up
yeah,
your
you can
mind.
never
What is
stop the
Toronto?
double standard.
Now they got Revo, so I guess they're dirty.
Yeah, and then second place, I have Tampa. They're starting to lose a lot of the core from the cup teams, but they still have the main pieces in place. You still got your Kucherovs, your Hedmans, your Vasilevskis, your you know you
With the
got all that.
quietest 50-goal season of all time.
Yeah, really. And then like Tampa, they always seem, like you said, they seem to have a random guy step up every year. In 2020, it was Ross Colton in the playoffs. 2021, it was Nick Paul. Last year, I think they
Brandon
expected
Hagel.
it to be Tanner Journeau, but it wasn't.
It was Hagel.
Hagel,
Every
yeah.
single year they trade for some guy and he ends up going off for them.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, we'll see. I just don't want another first round between Toronto and Tampa because
Oh,
I
don't
absolutely
worry.
hate watching that jersey matchup because it is confusing.
It could be worse. It could be Toronto and Buffalo because you know that Toronto's not coming out of that series alive. Buffalo has their number.
Yeah, that's what I'm a bit worried about. Third place, I actually did put the Panthers here. I don't think they lost enough to not become a playoff team. They lost lost Radko Gudas. They lost Duclair. But in my eyes, those are personally like holes you can fill. I don't think they filled them yet. I don't think Oliver Ekman-Larsson fills that role.
I think Ekman-Larsson could be bound for a bounce back.
Yeah,
Put him
he's
in the right situation where he's not logging those big top 4 minutes because I think the big problem with Ekman-Larsson was injuries, and he just never really had. I don't know. He just never really fit systems the right way. I mean, everybody forgets. Everybody will talk about how Ekman-Larsson is absolutely awful, right? But you forget, early 2010s into the mid 2010s, a little bit into the late 2010s. Guy was an animal. I mean, he was snubbed out of a Norris, in my opinion. I mean, somewhere deep down, that defenseman is still there. It's just a matter of trying to tap that again, and Florida can find offensive defensemen pretty well.
Oh yeah. And the thing is, I think they still have to lose a bit more. I think they are in the negatives in cap space right now. So we'll see what they shed off, like if I don't know. It's a matter of if and when. I
Trade
think they will.
Bobrovsky.
I was thinking that, but they're the reason why they went far. He's the reason why they went far last
Trade
year.
Bobrovsky. Run Alex Lyon. Although, oh wait, he's not even there.
Yeah.
Who even is their backup this year? Oh, it's Stollers. Run Stollers all the way.
You never know. For my wild card spot, I have Buffalo. I think they will finally get there this year. They've been, like last year, they were that close, literally 1 point away from being the Florida Panthers last year. But I don't know. They seem to finally have all the right pieces after years of trying.
Just remember they got snubbed in the bubble too.
Oh yeah.
Like you remember that one, right?
Oh yeah.
Back in the bubble where technically, if we went by point percentage, had Buffalo won that night, that the season was canceled, Buffalo would have made the playoffs instead of Montreal because Montreal had a game on them. So
yeah,
I mean, Buffalo's been right there for a while. They're itchy. The fans are itching.
and
Bring
I
it
think
home.
this is the year they finally have something to really cheer about in Buffalo, and the fans deserve it. And they've been pretty restless, so I think they deserve something to cheer about in the playoffs this year. Afterwards, I have Ottawa. I don't know. Ottawa's a weird team for me. They're young, but they haven't really lived up to expectations yet. And I don't know. I think it's gonna take a little bit still before they finally get there. They seem to sign all these, like the I don't know if Tarasenko will be a version of DeBrincat this year, where they sign a good goal scorer, but he just can't find his footing there. I don't know. He seems like a weird choice for me.
I don't know. Give him a bit of
But
freedom. Put him with Giroux. See if it works.
you never know. Afterwards, I have Boston. I don't think they're going to be. I think that playoff collapse is going to weigh heavy on them this year, and they are, they're gonna struggle this year at times. And then Detroit, because Detroit really doesn't have an identity right now. Once again, we're gonna talk about this in a later video, but I think they're just throwing guys into the lineup and hoping it sticks. And then Montreal, because they're still going to be playing an AHL team.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, that's just the Montreal dream. Can't ever have a good team.
The only city to have two AHL teams.
The only city that went from going to a cup final to drafting first overall. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Anyways, where are we going on our road trip now?
Well, I think we switch conferences and we get a bit centralized.
I don't know. I think I know where you want me to go with this.
Maybe a certain central division.
Oh, well, I was thinking Pacific. All right, I can do the Central. We'll do the Pacific later. I'll do the Central. Personally, I think the Central might be one of the biggest toss-ups of the year. Like I think it's last year's Pacific, right? Because last year the Pacific, right? It was wide open, right? Practically nobody was good. Everybody was climbing in. I think that's the Central this year, right? Like the Central really looks open this year. Nobody really looks like a proper contender, but at the same time, nobody really looks absolutely atrocious except for like one team. Personally, and this might be a bit of a hot take, but I think Dallas is going to ride on their success from last year, their success from the bubble. I think Dallas is going to run it at the top. They're in a weird mix where they have some older guys and some younger guys, but the younger guys are really stepping up for them. So I just think that they're in that prime spot to start running that division. After that, I just can't see Colorado not being there. I mean, Landeskog isn't there, but Landeskog wasn't there last year. They replaced him with Jonathan Drouin, and you know, people might tell you, Jonathan Drouin, he sucks and he's not good and he's a bust. But I mean, he might have some sort of chemistry with Nathan McKinnon if you put him up there, right? Like he might be a man remade in a new situation away from Montreal. So I'd like to see how that goes. And other than that, I mean, the team's mostly intact from last year, if not a little bit younger. I think Minnesota, I think they're going to stick it again. I can't see a world where Minnesota's not in the playoffs because they're one of those teams where they're too good to not miss, but I don't think they're good enough to do any real damage anymore. I think honestly, like their MVP might actually be like Philip Gustafson. I think he's going to be a massive, make or break for them. If he has a year like last year, they're in a really good spot. If he struggles a little bit, then it's over. And surprisingly, I don't have a wild card in the Central. I have a bunch of teams that are all in roughly the same spot, but I just don't think they really compete with how good some of the Pacific teams are. Personally, at fourth, I do think it's Nashville. Nashville's in a weird spot where I thought they were going to rebuild, and then they started adding. Right, they brought in O'Reilly, they brought in Shen, and they buy out Duchesne, and they trade Johansson, and they go in and they add and they add and they add. Then they have a bunch of young guys, so I really don't know what they are, but I think they're trying to find a new identity. And I think they're trying to put off having to rebuild and just go for a full retool. But I just don't think it's enough. I don't think Ryan O'Reilly is a guy that you run as a first line center anymore. Personally, I just think that they're going to struggle a little bit more than expected. After that, and this is a really hot take, everybody tells me I'm an idiot for this one, but I think Arizona I really think Arizona is going to do a little bit of damage this year. Maybe not a lot of damage. Maybe it's more white noise. But I really think that Arizona is a team that's improved on paper, tenfold. They still got strong goaltending. Their offense is incredibly strong. It's creative. Their defense is like very much improved compared to last year. I think they're going to be a much better team, much more competitive. It wouldn't surprise me if they do find a way to get into the wild card talk. I think it's a bit early for them, and they should really be tanking one more year. But you know what? I think this is the direction they needed to go. And after that, I think it's Winnipeg. I just can't see. I think Winnipeg is going to continue to ride on its struggles of last year. Maybe moving Wheeler was will make the team better in the locker room, but I just don't think they've done enough in the offseason to really merit being better, and nobody wants to be there. St. Louis is kind of going through a retool. I don't think they're going to be in the mix. And, well, Chicago. It's pretty obvious where Chicago's at. Do you have Bedard? Yes. But his line mates are like Taylor Hall and Corey Perry. So they're not doing any damage. After Bedard and Hall, your best player is Andreas Athanasiou. Yeah, no. All right. Where you at?
Once again, our rankings are pretty similar. I have a little bit of different stuff, but our first four are actually similar. Dallas is in a weird spot where they have young guns and old guns from a previous run that are still like putting up good numbers. I think Dallas is going to rely heavily on those young guns, those Jason Robertsons, those Wyatt Johnsons, those guys. But like all depends how their season goes. Maybe they can afford to give Ben and Sagan a little bit of a back seat. All depends, on guys like Delandria as well. Like some of their young guns, if they can step up, then But I mean, they have some really like intriguing players. Like you have, you know, that decor is pretty decent too. And yeah, I think Dallas is your front runner in the Central. I think Colorado is a easy second place. Could even be first. They don't really have that core that they did during their cup run a couple of years ago that make me think they'll be first place anymore. But I mean, they can still make some noise. But once again, like they got to be healthy. They got some guys that are made of glass on that roster, but Colorado can still make a lot of noise. And then I have Minnesota. Like Minnesota's just a team that seems to linger in the playoffs every year. They don't make any noise. They push. They manage to push it to. Yeah, they're kind of like the way the Leafs used to be. They push it to a game 7 and just kind of fizzle out. Like
Yeah, just the difference is the Leafs were good in the regular season all the time.
yeah,
Minnesota was typically just squeaking in. They were just like, yeah, we're just happy to be here. Toronto at least legitimately was trying. Minnesota's like, yeah, we're just happy to be here. They haven't won a series in 16 years or something like
yeah,
that. They're the new
something like
Leafs.
that.
Just they're not the new Leafs because nobody's going to talk about it because they're not the Leafs.
Yeah, and I'm struggling with even like remember who is on that team right now. I mean, Kaprizov's going to carry them. Hopefully, Boldy has a breakout, even more of a breakout year. He had a good year last year, but I think this year he's going to have a even better year. And hopefully, the guys around him because they finally have a legit star and an up and coming star, and you can't afford to waste that. I mean, Minnesota needs to build around that.
Yeah, especially when you're Minnesota because Minnesota never hasn't had that in a long time.
Yeah,
They
I
haven't had
mean,
a bona fide star on that team. Before Kaprizov, they hadn't had one since what, like Gaborik?
yeah,
So I
I
mean,
mean the fans are pretty loyal in Minnesota. Give them something to cheer about because I mean you have two stars. Well, one star for sure, one that
in the
surely
making.
is going to be there soon. So
Yeah, give them
um,
something to be happy about for once.
afterwards, after that, I do have Nashville as a wild card spot only because last year they did have some signs last year where they were looking pretty solid last year and then they fizzled out. I think the key to getting that wild card spot this year is consistency. I, they I'm confused about their identity right now. It's, like it looked like they were fully gunning for a rebuild and then they didn't.
It was a clean slate. Like
Yeah.
Poyle left and left Trotz left him a clean slate and he said, nah, I don't want your clean slate. We're gonna try and win again.
I mean, they have some great pieces for the future. I mean, you look no further than a net. You got to be lucky to, as soon as Pekka Rinne retired, you all of a sudden have another star goaltender. Like, how many teams does that happen to? Like, you got to take advantage of that.
Literally just Tampa Bay off the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah. There's not many teams that's happened to. You look at Montreal right now and the revolving door that is their goaltending after Carey Price
Hey
took an
now,
indefinite
Jake
hiatus.
Allen and Sam Montembeault were there when Carey Price left. Come on now. It's not a revolving door. They've been there this whole time.
Yeah, but they brought in those guys because I don't know. I don't know.
They
It
came in
is
to
a
back up.
revolving
Now
door
they're
though.
just the starters. Come on.
I look at that year after when Fleury got injured for Vegas and they ran like 7 goaltenders. Same thing with Ottawa last year. Ottawa had like 7
That year
goaltenders.
that Philly ran like 8.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, they're just lucky they've never had to go through that. So
I wish my
um
team never has to go through it.
imagine.
Actually,
Seems like a godsend.
Toronto would be able to do it. They have like 500 goalies under contract.
They have some great prospects, but I'm getting way off track
Yeah,
here.
we're going way off track
Um
now.
I have Winnipeg in fifth. I think Kyle Connor is absolutely going to carry that team this year, but it won't be good enough to make the playoffs. Um, I have Arizona in sixth. I think the young guns are finally going to start to break out. I don't think it'll be enough for a playoff spot, but I think guys like Logan Cooley and all them will finally, you know, give whatever fans are in Arizona something to cheer about. I have St. Louis. I think they're going to fully commit to the rebuild. I don't know what pieces are left from the cup run. There's not many. I think they have Pareko and Shen.
Pareko, Shen,
Yeah,
Thomas, Binnington.
I don't think Thomas will be gone, but I think the other guys will.
I think that's
Not
all that left.
Binnington.
There's not a lot of guys left on that core.
No, that team blew up fast after that cup run,
It really did. Well, Petrangelo said, I'm out of here pretty
pretty
quickly
much. And then Chicago because
in
you know,
Chicago.
yeah,
They want Macklin Celebrini.
yeah. That's all I got for the Central.
Honestly, the Pacific is an interesting division for me because I mean, last year it was just that comically bad that practically anybody could have made it in. I mean, Calgary missed by only a couple points after a disastrous season. Edmonton was suffering from direct awful goaltending. Vegas had just missed the year before. They were like the only good team. Seattle could outscore their problems, but I mean, their goaltending really wasn't that great, despite what, records might lead you to believe. LA, they weren't bad, but I mean, their goaltending was also a little bit suspect. Vancouver was an absolute, shambolic season for them. It just was not a good season for anybody last year. This year, I think it's a bit different. I think it's a season now where realistically, there's 6 teams that could be in the playoffs, maybe even 7. But I'm gonna stick it with 6, right? Personally, I think Vegas is gonna run it back. I mean, they're practically the same team last year. The most that they lost is they traded Smith and they let go of Bluger and they let go of Kessel. But other than that, the team's largely the same. So I think Vegas is definitely number one. Aiden the Mountain's going to lead them to the promised land a second time. After that, I think it's Edmonton. I just can't see a world where Edmonton's not in there. I just can't see them being better than Vegas because they're still not an incredibly deep team. They're deeper now, but I still think there's stuff that's missing from Edmonton, and their goaltending's still a little bit suspect. They're still very much, a two-line team. Um, right? So that's why I just can't put them a little bit higher. After that, I think it's going to be LA. I think adding Pierre-Luc Dubois was a massive move for them. They were able to free up some space. Still got Kevin Fiala, and you got Anze Kopitar, who's still, a prime, level player. I mean, and their goaltending is stronger. I mean, Talbot's a little bit suspect. He hasn't been a proper starter in a long time now, where he was actually succeeding, like way back to his Edmonton days, but he could still bounce back. Seattle, their goaltending again is a little bit suspect. Grubauer really came alive during the playoffs, but he's been pretty brutal in the regular season. So that's just why I have him a bit lower. But last year they really proved to me that this is a team that can definitely win in the playoffs. They went to the second round. They had Dallas, up against the ropes, that entire series. And I think they're just going to get better from this. They're a younger team. They got some veteran presence in there. Shane Wright's going to be coming up most likely full time. And if he doesn't, I mean, it is what it is, right? You can still replace that with other guys, and they really didn't lose a lot in the offseason that they didn't replace. And I think they're going to be my wild card. My second wild card, I think it's going to be a toss up between Calgary and Vancouver. Personally, I think it's Calgary. I don't think Calgary is actually a bad team. I think part of their issue was with Daryl Sutter. It was more of the room and the players. With the room, the players, the coach, they just didn't connect the right way. I think in a new coaching situation, I'm mixing up my words now. I think it's a situation now where the players might be a bit better. A lot of these guys are in contract years. It's just a matter of what happens though, because coming in the deadline, if Lindholm still doesn't want to be there, and Backlund doesn't want to be there, and Hannafin doesn't want to be there, do they move on from just say screw it? We'll retool it. We'll miss out, or like it really depends on how good Calgary is coming in the deadline. I think, but they're in a really tricky spot. Vancouver, they didn't really make a crazy amount of ads, but they didn't really lose out on a lot either. I think that they're going to bounce back. I think they're going to start showing, they got better under Rick Tocchet. And I think they're going to start showing a little bit more of their identity. Their younger guys are going to start stepping up a little bit more. They're going to be taking up more roles. Pedersen is just going to go way off this year. So he's going to be well over 100 points, I think. Storin's just opening up for this guy. He's just getting started. And I think Thatcher Demko is definitely bouncing back as well. And then personally, after that, it's Anaheim and San Jose. Anaheim, not that good. San Jose, dumpster fire. Like I don't. There's not like one good thing to say about San Jose's team right now because they're not going anywhere. They are going to be the worst team in the NHL. Mark my words.
Yeah, I mean that's a solid solid list. Mine doesn't stray up too far off. Number one, I have Vegas. I think Vegas is a safe bet in first spot. They haven't lost too much, surprisingly. Usually after a cup win, you usually lose quite a lot, but they haven't, and they've only lost a few guys.
That's how Vegas works, though.
Yeah, Vegas seems to, they
Vegas,
seem to hit
Vegas
the
got
jackpot
that
every
lucky
time.
horseshoe.
Yeah. Second, I have Edmonton. I mean, there's only, when you have McDavid and Draisaitl, you're bound to. I mean, prime McDavid, Draisaitl. I know they didn't make the playoffs a couple of years with them, but now, like, those guys are carrying that team.
Do you miss the playoffs with McDavid and Draisaitl? There's a problem.
Yeah, and I mean that's a whole discussion on its own, but their depth is still questionable. It's not amazing. I think it can be better, definitely better. But I mean, they shake it up every year. It's like there's no consistency with their bottom six. It's always in and outs, and
it's always like washed up old veterans too, like Kyle Turris.
Yeah,
right. No offense to Kyle Turris, but he wasn't the same guy he was in Ottawa when he went to Edmonton. I don't know what Edmonton was really expecting at that point, and I think he kind of knew where he was at, in his career too. So I mean, their depth has always been weird.
I think they're on the right path. They just re-signed Ryan McLeod.
Bring back Yakupov.
Yakupov, you never know. Forget those Yager rumors. Let's get Nail Yakupov return rumors going.
Bring Yager back and let him play with Connor McDavid. Add another team to his list.
Yeah, I mean Edmonton was one of those teams he didn't play for, so He's still got a bunch. Another guy that never played is Alex Galchenyuk. You know, why not bolster your depth and
No, no,
pay
no,
his
no, no.
bail and
Mr. Worldwide's gone to Russia. He's decided he's going to learn a little bit of Russian.
for now.
That's unfortunately what happens when you tell a cop that you're going to disembowel him and kill his family.
I think
It's sad to see what happened to the stars of old. You live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
well, he's just another victim of the Montreal development system.
Oh no, he was a villain in Toronto too. He helped Montreal go for a cup.
Yeah, it was the first
It was
thing
an
he ever did to
inside
help
job.
them.
It was definitely an inside job.
I don't know. Maybe Max Pacioretty can come back and I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but my third team I have Seattle. I think now that they have a taste of the playoffs, I think they're going to, you know, they're going to do more with it, and we'll see. You know, they have a very interesting team. They just, you know, they just re-signed Vince Dunn. You know, they've been kind of making sure that roster is going to be around for a bit now. So they clearly like what they have, and they're going to continue with it.
I really like Seattle because it's one of those teams where there's no like bona fide number one star on that team.
Yeah,
Like you see every other team that goes to playoffs, there's always one guy, right? One guy that everybody knows is going to be good. Seattle doesn't have that. Seattle was literally a roster of top six forwards and top four defensemen, right? And they just all clicked, right? There was no real standout true star. I mean, closest they had to a star was like Andre Burakovsky and Jared McCann. And I mean, they're not, no offense to those guys, they're great hockey players. They're not necessarily what I would consider, a star player.
and I think that's much more fun. You know, like they're uh, they're going to be a team that could be fun to watch for a while.
Well, especially with Matty Beniers and Shane Wright. Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah, they did it,
They draft
and they've
beautifully.
drafted really well too.
They draft beautifully.
Oh,
It's just hit after hit after hit.
Seattle will be a problem for years to come. And
Oh, they definitely
you
will.
know what? I like what they've done, and I will I'll continue to watch their playoff games because they were a fun team to watch last year.
They really
They
were.
almost beat Dallas, almost beat them.
Imagine Vegas and Seattle in the conference finals. Everybody would have been, after screaming that Seattle absolutely blew it in their first year, they would then be saying that the draft was rigged.
Yeah,
Just
really,
because of the
eh?
fact that Seattle built through free agency.
Yeah, I don't know. We've had two success. Well, we've had two expansion teams in a row now that have done well off the bat. It's kind of weird territory.
Yeah, well, they're going to Atlanta, so you know that they're not going to go for three.
That guy who runs the Bring Back Thrashers Twitter account is going to be thrilled.
Oh my God. I was talking to that guy the other day. That guy was very happy about me talking about how he needs to get some recognition.
Well, maybe we'll bring him on the podcast.
Yeah. What is it that drives you to want to bring back the Atlanta Thrashers?
Is that a question for me or him?
Nah, that's gonna be a question for him.
Uh, I just like their jerseys. I don't, I had no attachment to Atlanta during their tenure, but
I was just like 9 years old, so I just didn't know what an Atlanta Thrasher was. They were gone by the time I was old enough to realize.
I just remember the announcement. My dad was listening to the radio first thing in the morning, and I remember hearing that Winnipeg was coming back. I remember waking up to that. That was I remember that memory. I don't have any other memory of Atlanta other than that, but
Well, of course, you'd remember that. You've been around for forever.
so I've been told.
Yeah. All right, well,
Um,
let's keep moving down your list. We're kind of going down a
yeah,
rabbit hole here.
yeah. I didn't expect a conversation about the Thrashers to come about tonight, but
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah,
Um,
apparently.
yeah, maybe when they come back, they might make the playoffs for once.
Imagine.
My wild card spot, I have the LA Kings because I don't know, the LA Kings just baffle me. They're they're not a team that's really fully committed to a rebuild. They're still hanging on the likes of Drew Doughty and Andre Kopitar. And I don't know. They're a confusing team to me, but yet somehow they managed to push Edmonton to the brink every year in the first round. Um, I don't know. They could do something this year, but they're not a team that yells deep playoff run to me, but either with the Florida Panthers. So we'll
I mean, they went on a deep playoff run with Kopitar and Doughty before as a wild card, so
yeah, I don't know. They're a team that, can bring some noise, I guess. They
I
have
think
some
so.
good depth and they're I don't know. We'll revisit this in the playoffs. But yeah, LA wild card only because the three teams ahead of them I think are leaps and bounds better. After that, I have Calgary. I don't have any expectations of Calgary this year.
Calgary.
I yeah, I don't see them doing anything this year. I expect, spoiler alert to our next conversation, I expect a little bit of a bounce back from Huberdeau. But other than that, I don't see much out of Calgary.
Calgary.
Yeah, that's what I call them. I have the Canucks next. I once again don't expect much out of the Canucks. I think they build up the team properly, and then I don't know what happened. Maybe it was that COVID scare that they had a few years ago, but everything has just fell apart
What COVID
in
scare are you talking about? They
Vancouver.
still found a way to beat the Austin Matthews Maple Leafs.
I don't like to talk about that game. I remember watching that game
It
too,
was
and
like the COVID Canucks who hadn't played in a month versus the Maple Leafs, and they still found a way to win.
yeah, wow, you kind of knew that was going to happen.
I did. I actually predicted it the night before. I'm like, now watch. The COVID Canucks haven't played in a month. Austin Matthews is back for his first game in a while. The Leafs are losing this game, and it's probably going to be a blowout.
They just have a
And lo
way
and
of
behold, the COVID Canucks win the game.
doing that. But I
I
don't
don't
know the
know.
Canucks. I don't see doing anything. I don't know. They're just a team that really had the pieces figured out, and then just something just happened with them that they just imploded. And I don't know where to go from there. I
I can
don't.
tell you where to go.
Yeah.
I think what we need is Anna Kendrick needs to finally respond to Anthony Beauvillier on Twitter or X, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll boost him a little bit to play better, She just
You
has
know
to say
what?
hi to him.
I forgot he went there, to be honest.
Bro, Beauvillier is such a good man. He donated both his kidneys to me. Like absolute like win of a human being. I heard that, he sponsored an entire orphanage. Andrew Kendrick, if you're listening, Anthony Beauvillier, he's a real man. You want this guy.
He saved my cat from a hurricane when he was on Long Island. So,
Wow.
yeah, he's a good guy.
Good guy.
And afterwards, I have Anaheim. I don't think they're going to be awful this year, but I don't think they're going to be great. And then I have San Jose, who are very far off from the team that potted 4 goals in 5 minutes on Vegas. But
Yeah. It's kind of sad to see them finally fall off. They were like good my entire existence, and now they're bad.
yeah,
It's sad.
they were another team that really should have done more. I'm shocked they never won a cup with that core.
I mean, they got to go up against Pittsburgh. The only issue is they got thrashed by Pittsburgh.
That's
And I
Pittsburgh
mean,
for you.
they've gone on a couple other runs. I mean, they beat Vegas.
Yeah.
They've lost to Vegas, but yeah, no, I think Vegas was just the end of them. As soon as Vegas showed up, San Jose started to, disappear a little bit.
Well, they have that famous Game 7 against them, and you know what?
Oh God, I think Vegas fans want to forget about that one.
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't.
Cody Eakin wants to forget about that game too.
Yeah, you know who doesn't? Joe Pavelski.
Joe Pavelski is never going to forget that game because they won. And you could tell that he couldn't forget that game because the same damn thing happened to him this year. And then he came back and proceeded to just absolutely go off and put up like 4 goals, and they still found a way to lose.
Yeah, it's you know Pavelski's your playoff guy. You just got to support him, which he does now. He has the support now, thankfully.
Finally.
But Yeah. Imagine him and Matt Duchene on a line, which will probably happen.
Oh God. I don't
That's
even
a
know
lot
where
of.
Duchesne fits in that lineup.
I don't know. Do you play the old guns together?
Put Tyler Seguin with Jamie Benn and Joe Pavelski.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be maybe one of the slower lines in the league now, but they can still pop some goals on you.
Oh,
I
totally.
mean, Pavelski has aged like a nice Gouda. Like
He's aging like fine wine. Like that man
he's
does not. He just seems to get better with age.
the man's not slowing down.
He'll slow down
He's solid.
eventually, maybe.
He will, but I don't know. He's one of those
He
guys
might just retire before he slows down.
I want to see that man get a cup. He's the guy I've always really liked, and you know, Dallas, if you're watching, do the thing.
Just do the thing. Go for it now.
Do the thing.
I mean, I read a rumor the other day. It was some crappy rumor, but they're saying like that Dallas is in on like Colton Parayko or something. Like, why on earth would Dallas go for Colton Parayko? It does not
Weird.
make sense. I'm like, Thomas Harley, you're never playing another hockey game in Dallas if that happens.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right? I
for a
think Dallas has
fact
all the pieces though. Dallas is going to go deep this year.
they should. You know, they had glimpses of it. Like last year, I really thought they could have gone far. I I don't know. I really thought they could have beat Vegas last year.
I think they could have too.
Yeah, Vegas is just built for the playoffs though. Like they're just big and tough. So is Dallas,
That's
just not to the extent that Vegas
they
is.
weren't fat. Dallas wasn't fast enough to deal with Vegas, and Aiden Hill
Yeah,
was an absolute menace to society.
yeah, that man's a problem.
Yeah. Anyways, we have a couple other topics we still need to cover tonight.
Yes, I think we do.
Busy guys today. I'm not sure where you want to go. We could go down awards, we could go down breakouts and bounce backs. I'm not sure what you want to do.
I think breakouts would be fun.
Breakouts? All right. Well, personally, I'm not sure if you're gonna like this list very much. First off, I have a 26-year-old Bruin centerman. He's drafted 6 overall by the New Jersey Devils, and he has a career high of 57 points. What do you think it is?
Does his name rhyme with Baka?
I was gonna make a joke there, and I refrained from, but yes, it is Pavel Zacha.
I didn't even have anything in mind. I literally just like pulled that out of my
I could tell. I could see the
left ear.
smoke. I could see the
You can
smoke.
probably see the gears moving in my head.
Yeah, I can. You're like your forehead's just kind of like bulging a little bit.
Yeah,
I can see the gears.
the more creases in in the forehead, the more thoughts are coming, and usually it's not a whole lot.
Many joys of getting old. I bet you were probably around when Richard was playing. You
Oh
probably
yeah,
remember like prime Gordie Howe.
oh yeah,
You got a signed Howie Morenz jersey.
oh yeah. You
Yeah,
know what? You
sounds
know
about
I lit
right.
up Phil Esposito in Junior B.
Oh, I could see that.
Oh yeah,
You look the part. Anyways,
oh yeah.
past the insults. Personally, I think Zacha's really going to have a big year this year. I mean, he put up 57 points last year, but I mean, he's going to be the first line center this year. Because I mean, nobody else is going to be the first line center on Boston, which means he's playing with Marchand and Pasternak, who have not gotten worse. Oh no, bro's just going to get fed the puck all night long. I think Zacha's definitely in for another big year. I think I could see him going for like a 70-point season just because of who he's playing with. Another guy that I really think is going to go off that's been around for a while. He's 28 years old. He's kind of had a little bit of a rough career. He was taken third overall by Tampa Bay. Got shipped out for Sergachev and just never put it together. He went to Montreal. He was supposed to be the next perennial French goal scorer, except for the fact that he was a playmaker. I'm talking about Jonathan Drouin. He's a guy. He's for his entire career, he was a guy that would excel on his speed. He was a guy that could beat you up the boards, and that's what his game was. He played a possession system, and Montreal had him playing dump and chase. So I really think, putting him in Colorado with his old teammate, Nathan McKinnon, I don't know. I think it could be good for him. I think we might see a little bit of a bounce back out of him, a little bit more of a spark for him as he tries to kind of regain his footing and maybe prove that, hey, I haven't gone away yet. I'm still here. Um, and I think, I think part of it too is Nathan McKinnon kind of talked Colorado and even bringing him in. So I think that's going to be something good for his career. I could see him, coming back up to what he's been in the past. I know that he's been somewhere, he was like 53 in Tampa Bay. He's had 100-point seasons in the queue with like 40 some odd games. I mean, that doesn't just go away, right? It's just a matter of finding that again. Um, and then I have a bunch of younger guys too that I think will break out. I think Sean Dursey with a bigger role in Arizona. I think he's going to get a bit more of an opportunity now that Drew Doughty's not in his way. I think Cole Caulfield coming off of an injury, he was on pace for about 40 last year. I think this year he realistically could put up 40 or 50 goals, right? I just think that Cole Caulfield is really going to go off this year. And Morgan Frost, if he ever chooses to sign a deal, I think Morgan Frost is a guy that he's going to have, the entire world to work with. Sean Couturier is a bit of a question mark whether he plays much in Philly this year. Kevin Hayes is gone, so the center role is wide open for him right now, right? So I think Frost could be a guy that could, pop off a little bit more. I think he had, it was 46 points this year, so I mean he's definitely in that 50 range. And finally, I think Lafreniere. I mean, poor guy, he's buried in the bottom six. He's in the worst situation he possibly could be in. He never should have ended up in New York because they were a fringe playoff team to begin with. And unfortunately, that meant he gets stuck behind veterans. He's not getting power play time. But I think maybe they'll finally realize if they give him a bit more power play time, they might be able to get a little bit more. He was just shy of 40 points last year. He was, big point guy in the QMJHL. I just can't see a world where Lafreniere busts. But New York needs to make the right plays with him if he's going to break out properly, right? Like it's like a Hughes situation, right? You just got to give it time.
Yeah, he's one of those guys too. Is like 2020 draft was not good.
It was a weird draft. And part of it was COVID, I think.
Part of it was, you didn't get a full season of a lot of guys. And I think he was a clear-cut favorite, even though,
He was the
there
clear-cut favorite from the start of the season. Everybody knew that it was going to be him. His
but he
NHL
wasn't.
career just has not. He hasn't really had the help that he needed in the NHL, though. He just keeps getting shafted. He has a good game. That's great. You can play in the top six. As soon as they lose a game where he's in the top six, he's the one that gets bumped down, even though he scored a goal.
And I don't think, like, he's that franchise-changing player. He's going to be good in your roster, but he's not going to be, like a McKinnon or a McDavid or a Matthews or something like that.
I think he could have been that kind of guy had he gone to a different team. But because he's stuck in Montreal, who's notorious for not being able to develop prospects properly, and he's stuck behind Chris Kreider and Artemi Panarin, I think ultimately that's what's going to cost him, and I think that's going to stunt him.
Stuck with the Rangers.
Yeah, that's the worst thing you can possibly do is get drafted by the Rangers, apparently. They cannot develop in-house whatsoever.
Well, one of my guys I have is another Ranger as well. I think Capo Caco, which is one of the most fun names to say.
Capo Caco.
I think
just arrived in New York.
He's due.
It is a nice city. Love Capo Caco, man.
You know what? I enjoyed the few. I didn't watch many Rangers games last year, but I saw a lot of glimpses, and I'm like, this guy could be really good. But I think once again, he's a young guy that's buried in that roster, and I don't think he gets the looks that he should. And I think, maybe, I don't know. I think he'd more benefit from like a fresh
start,
fresh environment.
Send him to Chicago. Let him play with Connor Bedard.
I think that'll be like solid for him, but
Connor Bedard
I don't think they will.
40-goal scorer.
They're not going to give up on him, I don't think, yet.
I was expecting that to be something in the Patrick Kane trade.
Yeah.
And then it just never happened. But I think I agree with you. I think Capo Caco needs out of Montreal or out of New York. Well, it's bad I'm already talking about Montreal. But yeah, I think he's a guy that he needs out of New York. He's almost like same situation as, a fellow top pick that just keeps getting shafted in Philip Zadina, right? Where he went to the Sharks now. But every time they just kept bringing in more guys, kept bumping him down the roster, right? So I think Capo Caco, he just needs somewhere new that's going to let him play in the top six.
Yeah, and you know what? You mentioned Chicago. I think that would be a great spot
That
for
would
him.
that would shore up their top six wingers a little bit more. That would make them all the more better. You move on from the guy that you got at third, and you get the guy that you got that went second that year. Why not?
Yeah,
All right, who else do you got?
I'm not too sure. Your list was way better than mine.
I had a big list.
Holy priority.
Oh my God. All right. Well, if you don't have anybody else, I can jump into a couple bounce backs quickly.
I think you covered that really well.
You want me to go bounce backs?
Yeah,
All right. Well, personally,
I think I'd do better at this.
I think Patrick Laine is my big gun for a bounce back.
Okay, that's a
Right?
good one.
Patrick Laine, he's former 40 goal guy. At one point, everybody thought he was on par with Matthews. He's had a couple crappy coaching situations with Brad Larson, John Tortorella. He had a toxic room in Winnipeg. This year, I think it's going to be a bit more of an opportunity for him. He's healthy now. He was almost point per game last year. So I think he's right on that cusp of putting up 40 again. Hedman had a bit of a down year, which is kind of weird to say that, a 49-point season for a defenseman is a down year, but he was point per game the year before. I think that was just a fluke. I think Hedman will be back. Tyler Seguin, if he's healthy, I think he's going to bounce back. Thatcher Demko, I think, is going to bounce back. And my really big Leafs hot take, I think John Klingberg is going to get back into shape. Everybody thinks that I'm crazy for it. But everybody forgets, not too long ago, John Klingberg was a 47-point defenseman. And this was before everything opened up, right? Like, he played on Anaheim last year, right? Like, you're going to judge the guy for putting up 33 points in 67 games, and most of that was in Anaheim? Come on. Right? Like, he's going to bounce back. He'll be playing power play too with, Toronto Maple Leafs. I think he bounces back.
Yeah, it'll be a good change of scenery for him. He's playing with some of the best players in the league, right? So
100%.
for my bounce backs, I think a big one that dropped off massively last year. I think Jonathan Huberdeau is due for a big bounce back this year.
I can see
he's
it.
an insanely talented player. I think one of the most underrated players in the whole league, and I think he's due. I think he's due for a big bounce. Another guy I'm thinking could be due for a big bounce is Morgan Riley.
I can agree with that.
He had a pretty bad regular season last year. It didn't help he was out for half of it. He was injured. He came back. I don't think he scored a goal until February or March.
But he came alive in the playoffs, so
he
if
had
those
a
playoffs are
great
anything
playoff.
to indicate, he's back.
Oh yeah, I'm not too worried about him. He potted quite a few goals against Tampa. He had a few goals against. Well, he had that one famous disallowed goal against the Panthers, but he still stayed hot. But yeah, Morgan Riley, I think he'll have a great regular season this year. He's still got lots in him. And trying to think. I think Elias Pettersson is a big bounce back candidate.
He was good last year.
Was he?
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
He was really good last year.
Fair enough. The only image I have of the Canucks right now in my head is just a dumpster with flames shooting out of it. So
fair. Well, a lot of those guys once played for the Flames at some point, over the last couple of years.
Yeah, they seem to be exchanging a lot of players between those two. And Edmonton gets in the mix every once in a while.
Yeah, Edmonton likes to mess around. I don't know what's going on in Western Canada. They just like sharing.
I enjoyed the goalie change, and then they fought each other in Edmonton and Calgary when they traded Cam Talbot and Mike Smith for each other. Proceed to drop the gloves against each other.
Yeah, I loved that.
That was That was right around when the world just started falling apart. I mean,
It
the
honestly
world
was.
wasn't
It's because Cam Talbot lost.
the world
Cam
wasn't ready
Talbot
for
won
that
that, the world would not have fallen apart.
because right when the season got postponed, those two were in lined up for a playoff series. Now imagine a Battle of Alberta, and if I remember correctly, there was supposed to be a
They
Battle of
did.
Alberta that didn't happen that year.
No, there was a Battle of Alberta recently though, because they played in 2022.
Yeah, but they're
2022 second round they played each other.
I'm talking about in 2020 because
Yeah,
that's
but
the year.
2022 we did officially get it. So
Yeah, but it wasn't what it was. I'm thinking of the year like when like Zach Cassian was still there
and they were
and
both good teams.
Milan Lucic and like those guys were dropping the gloves every 5 minutes against each other. And
Ethan Bear and Kachuk.
we were robbed of
We were.
maybe one of the greatest playoff series we could have ever watched. But I don't know. It's just the Battle of Alberta isn't the same anymore. There needs to be something to like spark up the rivalry. Like that David Rittich stick toss at the end of the shootout when they won. I think that really like something like that needs to happen again. Something
There
small.
needs to be a little bit more character between the two teams. Last year they were a little
Yeah.
bit fuzzy with each other. They
Edmonton
weren't as like angry with each other as they normally were.
Edmonton doesn't have the top the big guns anymore. They're not
Well, they got Evander Kane.
they got Kane, but they don't really have anything else. Like they'll draw. Oh, Darnell Nurse might drop the gloves, but
Warren Fogle maybe.
Fogle, I'm not sure if Fogle's a real fighter, but
Just
I don't
send
know.
Connor
That seems
McDavid into the scrum. If Matthews will fight, McDavid can fight.
McDavid fought once in junior. If I
Yeah, we
remember
all remember
correctly,
that one. We all remember that one. Someone broke his hand after that.
yeah, never fought again after that one. But
Gee, I wonder why.
yeah, that once again straying way off topic, but
We
I
have a tendency to do that.
yeah, there's just so much to talk about on Riding the Pine. Awards. I don't see them being too different from last year.
All right, do we want to super speed through these? Because we don't want to bore these people too long.
You know what? Just throw out some hot takes.
Throwing some hot takes?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, my personal hot take, I think Connor Bedard's winning the Calder. But I think that's just a hot
Ooh.
take. Hot take, I think Cale Makar is going to win the Norris. My other hot take, I think Connor McDavid is going to win the Rocket.
Ooh, that's
But
real
the
hot
real
take.
hot take is I think Jack Hughes is going to be in the mix.
Yeah, I don't
I think
seeing that too far off from reality.
I think Igor Shesterkin is going to win the Vezina. I
Yeah.
think Nico Hischier is going to win the Selkie.
Yeah.
But, it's always possible that Bergeron wins it. I think Jack Hughes takes home the Hart. And I personally think, now you're never going to believe this one, Connor McDavid takes home the Art Ross with 170 points. And I think Jack Hughes is third in that race.
Well, you had me until you mentioned the guy that retired.
What do you mean? Bergeron's still going to find a way to win it, even though he's retired.
Crazier things have happened.
What?
Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, exactly. Bergeron's going to come back mid-season because he decided he can't hang him up, and that'll be that. He will
Especially
come
in
back.
Boston
I
land.
tell you now, I am placing my money. Patrice Bergeron will come back by the deadline and lead Boston to the promised land and win another Selkie. Book it. He's coming back.
All right. This is your Pecorine is too good right now moment.
Yeah. Tuukka
I
Rask
like
was
it.
too good too.
Tuukka Rask
All
was too
right.
good until he vanished.
Oof, vanished.
Well, you got. I hope some people have screen captured some of that, and we'll come look at this in next summer.
Yeah, we'll come look at this end of the season, realize how incredibly wrong we were when
I'm
somehow, checks notes, Chicago wins the Stanley Cup with Connor Bedard, who does
I'm
not
really
win the
looking
Calder,
forward to
however,
our
because he misses all season, and it's actually Andreas Athanasiou that carries him the whole way. Book it.
I'm really looking forward to our recap episodes.
Yeah. All
They're
right.
going to be fun.
Well, let's close that one out. It's kind of late at night. We don't want to bore anybody. So thank you for choosing Riding the Pine. We can't wait to see you next time.
Thank you for riding it out on Riding the Pine.